This video is about the mom stood near the mountain trail and a rich stranger bought her coffee. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. Part 1. The Mountain Trail. The sun had barely risen above the jagged peaks of the Blue Ridge Mountains, casting a warm golden hue across the landscape. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, bringing with it the earthy aroma of pine and freshly brewed coffee. Nora stood at the trailhead, her worn hiking boots planted firmly on the ground, her thoughts drifting between memories of her late husband and the weight of her responsibilities. She was a mother, a widow, and now a woman standing at the precipice of a new beginning, though she wasn't sure what that beginning entailed. The solitude of the mountains offered her a brief escape from the chaos of life, the demands of her two energetic children who were both still in bed, and the crushing solitude that sometimes felt like a heavy blanket draped over her heart. Nora tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, glancing at the small thermos of coffee by her side. It was her small act of rebellion against routine, allowing herself this moment of peace before diving back into the world of school drop-offs, PTA meetings, and the lingering absence of her husband, who had embraced the mountains long before she had. Just as she was about to take a sip, a sleek, dark SUV pulled up beside the trailhead. The engine hummed quietly before falling silent. Nora watched as a tall man stepped out, his tailored suit and polished shoes stark against the rugged terrain. He moved with an ease that belied the fabric he wore, and Nora felt a flicker of curiosity mixed with caution. "Morning," he called out, his voice rich and deep, cutting through the crisp mountain air. He approached her, a confident stride in his step. "I hope you don't mind if I share this space with you. Looks like a beautiful day for a hike." Nora offered a polite smile, her instincts warning her against engaging too much. "It is beautiful," she replied, a hint of warmth creeping into her tone despite her resolve not to be drawn in. "I'm just enjoying some coffee before I head out." "If I had known there was coffee involved," he said, teasingly tilting his head, "I would have brought some of my own. Mind if I join you?" The request was innocent enough, but Nora hesitated. She didn't want to engage in small talk with a stranger, especially one who seemed so out of place in this serene landscape. Yet, there was something about him, a kind of magnetic pull that made her heart race slightly faster than usual. "Sure," she said reluctantly, and he smiled as if he had won a small victory. "I'm Ethan," he introduced himself, leaning casually against a nearby rock, his gaze steady and inviting. "And you are?" "Nora," she replied, taking a sip of her coffee, the heat a comforting balm. "Just a mom trying to escape for a bit." Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Just a mom, huh? Seems like there's more to your story than that. You look like you could conquer a mountain or two." "Flattery won't get you anywhere," she said, trying to keep the tone light. But there was a flutter of nerves in her stomach. She felt overly scrutinized under his gaze, as if he could see the layers of her life that she kept hidden even from herself. "Nah, flattery. Just an observation," he replied, his voice smooth and disarming. "Moms have a way of carrying the world on their shoulders. I admire that." Nora shifted her weight, feeling the tension of his words linger in the air between them. "Thanks, I guess. It's just, sometimes it feels like too much." Ethan tilted his head, his expression softening. "What do you do when it feels like too much?" She hesitated, her heart racing with the vulnerability of sharing that part of herself with a stranger. "I run. Well, I hike, or try to anyway. It's my escape. Just me and the mountains." "Sounds peaceful," he said, his eyes reflecting the mountain peaks behind her. "Mind if I accompany you? I could use a little peace myself." Nora's instinct was to say no. She relished her solitude, and the thought of sharing it with someone, not just anyone, but a wealthy stranger, felt unsettling. Yet she found herself searching his eyes for signs of arrogance, entitlement, or insincerity. All she saw was earnestness, All right, she finally agreed, her heart pounding slightly louder than before. But I warn you, I'm not a tour guide. I hike for the quiet, not for conversation. Understood, Ethan chuckled, stepping out of the way. Lead the way, then. As they walked side by side along the narrow trail, Nora felt the tension shift into something more comfortable. The chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves filled the silence, and she occasionally glanced at Ethan, who matched her pace effortlessly. "So, what brings you to these mountains?" she asked, trying to fill the silence between them. Ethan paused for a moment, his expression pensive. "Business, mostly. I invest in conservation projects. This area is one of my favorites. I love the outdoors." Nora raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "So you're not just a city slicker with a taste for adventure?" "Far from it," he replied, a playful grin crossing his lips. "I've been known to get my hands dirty. I even camped under the stars last weekend." "Camping? Now that's impressive," she said, surprised at how easy it was to talk to him. "That's a whole other level of commitment." "And yet, here I am, in a suit," he chuckled, gesturing to his clothing, the contrast to their surroundings stark. "I like to mix it up." A comfortable silence enveloped them again, and Nora found herself studying Ethan out of the corner of her eye. He had a quiet intensity about him, a kind of passion reflected in the way he moved and spoke. It was enchanting, and yet she felt a familiar pang of guilt. Mixing with a stranger felt like a betrayal to the memory of her husband, a disloyalty she didn't want to indulge. "Nora?" Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to him, her heart racing as their eyes met. "What about you? What do you do when you're not hiking?" The question hung in the air, charged with unspoken feelings. Nora shifted again, her mind racing to balance honesty with self-preservation. "I'm a teacher," she finally admitted. "I teach art at the local high school." "Art? That explains the creative spark I see in you," he smiled. But then his expression turned serious. "Do you love it?" Nora nodded, her heart swelling at the thought. "I do. It's the one thing that makes me feel alive, like I'm doing something worthwhile." "Then that's enough reason to keep pursuing it," Ethan said, his voice softening. "It sounds like you're chasing more than just a paycheck." As they continued to hike, the sun rose higher, and Nora felt a warmth blooming within her, ignited not only by the sun's rays, but by the growing connection she felt with Ethan. It was intoxicating and frightening. She reminded herself, though, that the world was a complicated place, filled with bits of chaos and joy intertwined. Suddenly, a sharp yelp broke through her thoughts, and she turned just in time to see Ethan narrowly avoiding a small rock slide on the trail. Her heart skipped a beat, and before she could think, she reached out, grabbing his arm to steady him. "Careful!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with concern. "Thanks," he replied, his breath slightly ragged, eyes widening with the sudden rush of adrenaline. Their faces were mere inches apart, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. The moment stretched between them, laced with unexpected tension. Nora's cheeks flushed as she released his arm slowly, her heart racing not only from the scare, but also from the intensity of their shared gaze. "Maybe we should slow down a bit," she suggested, her voice a mere whisper, the flirtation unintentional yet palpable. Ethan's lips curled into a sly grin. "I like a little danger." "Danger can be overrated," she shot back, trying to regain her composure, yet the way he watched her, as if she were the only person in the world, sent shivers down her spine. "Maybe," he mused, stepping closer once more. "But life without a little excitement can feel stagnant, don't you think?" Nora's pulse quickened. "Maybe you're right," she conceded, feeling the weight of his gaze ignite a spark of recklessness within her. As they continued up the trail, the laughter and the banter flowed more freely between them, the tension still simmering just below the surface like the distant roar of a waterfall. Yet, with every glance and shared laugh, Nora's inner battle intensified. The yearning for connection fought against the loyalty to her past. Little did she know, the mountains weren't the only ones steeped in history and hidden depths. The path ahead would lead them both into uncharted territory, filled with moments that would test their resolve and spark emotions none of them expected. Part 2. The Unfolding Path. They continued along the trail, the mountains looming like ancient sentinels around them. With each step, Nora felt the familiar weight of responsibility tugging at her heart. Yet with each passing moment spent with Ethan, that weight lightened just a bit. "Do you ever feel like you're searching for something?" Ethan asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had enveloped them. Nora looked at him, surprised by the depth of his question. "What do you mean?" He paused, placing a hand on a nearby tree for balance as he navigated a rocky outcrop. "I mean, like, do you ever feel like there's something more out there, something you haven't discovered yet?" "Every day," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm living half a life. I crave, I don't know, adventure maybe. But I have my kids to think about." Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's hard to balance responsibilities with your own desires. Trust me, I get it." "Do you?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "With your fancy suits and all?" He chuckled. "I might look polished, but my life is not as glamorous as it seems. I often find myself lost between being an investor and being me." "Who is you?" she probed, intrigued. He took a deep breath, looking out at the sweeping view before them. "Someone who loves the outdoors, who wants to protect these places. Someone who wants to be more than just a businessman." The vulnerability in his voice struck a chord within her. "That sounds fulfilling." "It is," he replied, his gaze steady on hers. "But it's lonely sometimes." Nora felt a pang of empathy. She had felt that loneliness herself, especially after losing her husband. It was a chasm that seemed insurmountable, and yet here was this man, seemingly so different from her world, echoing her own sentiments. "I know what you mean," she said quietly. "I worry that my kids are all I have left. Sometimes I wonder if I'm losing myself." "I don't think you'll lose yourself," Ethan said, his voice soft yet steady. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." Their eyes locked for a brief moment, and Nora felt the heat between them rise, a warm current flowing under the cool mountain air. She turned her gaze back to the trail, feeling her heart race. "I just have to keep moving forward." "Forward is good," he replied, his tone teasing as they continued walking. "But every now and then it's okay to look back too. Sometimes that helps you see how far you've come." Nora nodded, pondering his words. "I guess you're right." As they hiked further up the trail, the sound of running water drifted toward them, drawing her attention. "Is that a stream?" she asked, excitement bubbling in her chest. Ethan smiled, the friendly glint in his eyes returning. "I think it is. Want to check it out?" "Absolutely," Nora replied, feeling a sudden surge of energy. They veered off the path, and as they approached the stream, the sound of water rushing over rocks grew louder. Nora felt a sense of freedom wash over her as she stepped closer to the water, the cool mist brushing against her skin. "This is beautiful," she said, bending down to dip her fingers into the clear water. "It really is," Ethan agreed, his voice low and contemplative. "Nature has a way of grounding us." As he stood beside her, she could feel his warmth radiating, and for a moment, they simply enjoyed the tranquility of the moment. She turned to him, catching his gaze lingering on her. "Why?" she asked, a bemused smile touching her lips. "I was just thinking how amazing it is to see someone so alive in nature," he said, his voice low and sincere. "You light up out here." Nora felt a blush creep up her cheeks, and she quickly returned her attention to the water. "Thank you. I guess the mountains have always felt like home to me." "Then let's make the most of it while we can," he replied, stepping closer, their shoulders brushing against each other. A sudden sound from behind made them both turn. A small family had appeared on the trail, hiking with 2 children in tow. Ethan stepped back, creating space, but the energy between them felt electric. "Nice day for a hike," the father called out, and they exchanged brief pleasantries. But as the family continued past, Nora felt an unexpected pang of disappointment at the interruption. "Want to head back?" she suggested, trying to suppress the feeling. Ethan hesitated, studying her face. "Not yet. I think we're on the edge of something beautiful. Let's keep going." Nora felt a flutter of hope. "All right, let's do it." They continued along the stream, the water gurgling happily beside them. The air felt charged with possibility, and she could sense that their connection deepened with each passing moment. After a while, Ethan broke the silence. "You have a beautiful family," he said suddenly, his tone thoughtful. "Thanks," she replied, her heart twinging at the mention of her children. "They're everything to me." "I can see that," Ethan said, his expression earnest. "You carry them with you, even when you're hiking alone." Nora felt a wave of warmth at his words. "I try. They've been through so much." "You've been through so much too," he countered. "You're doing a fantastic job, you know." His words made her heart swell, but they also stirred a sense of guilt. "I'm just trying to keep my head above water," she confessed. "Some days it's a struggle." "I can imagine. But you have that fire in you," he said, his voice a gentle caress. "It's hard to lose it when it's so bright." Nora felt her breath hitch. The way he spoke about her made her feel seen, understood in ways she hadn't expected from someone she had just met. "Ethan," she said, her voice a whisper. But just then her phone buzzed in her pocket. She fished it out, glancing at the screen. A message from her daughter reminding her of an upcoming event at school. Reality crashed in like a wave, threatening to pull her under. "Sorry," she murmured, her heart sinking. "I need to head back. I have to pick up my kids." "Sure, of course," Ethan replied, masking his disappointment well. "Let's turn around." As they retraced their steps, the lightness from earlier had shifted. Nora sensed the tension in the air, a subtle undercurrent of unfulfilled attraction and unsaid words. "I really enjoyed today," she said, trying to lighten the mood, her heart heavy with regret. "Me too," he said, his smile genuine but tinged with sadness. "Maybe we can do this again sometime." "Maybe," she replied, the word hanging between them, uncertain. Ethan paused, turning to her. "Nora, I mean it. I really enjoy spending time with you. I know we just met, but I feel a connection." His words sent butterflies fluttering in her stomach, but she faltered, her mind rushing with conflicting thoughts. "It's complicated," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "Complicated is my middle name," he said lightly, but his gaze was serious. "But I promise you I'm not here to complicate your life. I'm just drawn to you." Nora swallowed, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. "I don't know if I'm ready for something like this." "I understand," Ethan replied, his voice softening. "Take your time. I just hope you'll think about it." As they reached the trailhead, the tension thrumming in the air became almost palpable. "Thanks for today," she said, her heart aching with the weight of what could have been. Ethan stepped closer, their eyes locking with an intensity that took her breath away. "Nora, whatever you decide, just know that you deserve happiness. Don't let fear hold you back." With that, he took a step back, giving her space, but the connection lingered like a warm glow in the cool mountain air. As they said their goodbyes, Nora felt a swirl of confusion within her. She had come to the mountains seeking solitude, yet she had found something far more profound. A connection that ignited a spark she thought had long since extinguished. As Ethan drove away, she stood at the trailhead, feeling the weight of the choices ahead of her. The mountains had witnessed countless stories, but now they held hers, a tale of hope, longing, and the promise of a new beginning. Part 3. The Turning Point. Days turned into weeks, and the mountains stood sentinel over the unfolding story of Nora and Ethan. Though their initial encounter had ignited a spark, the weight of Nora's reality pressed heavily on her heart, and she struggled to reconcile her life as a single mother with the budding connection she felt with the rich stranger. The mornings began to blur together. Each day, Nora woke early, the dawn light creeping through the curtains like a gentle whisper. She would brew her coffee, the rich aroma swirling through the air, reminding her of that fateful day on the trail. It had been a brief moment of freedom, a glimpse into a world beyond the confines of motherhood. And yet, it felt distant now. As she prepared her children for school, she often found herself gazing out the window, caught between the responsibilities of her life and the allure of the mountains calling to her. "Mama, hurry!" Her son, Jamie, called from the kitchen, his voice breaking through her reverie. He was a bundle of energy, a stark contrast to his older sister, Lily, who sat at the table, immersed in her sketchbook. "Coming," Nora replied, forcing a smile as she gathered their lunches. But even amidst the chaos of breakfast, images of Ethan flashed through her mind. His warm smile, the depth of his gaze, the way he made her feel alive. "Do we have to go to school today?" Jamie's voice was laced with reluctance, his little hands pushing away the cereal bowl as if it were a chore. "Yes, buddy, you have art class today," Nora encouraged, pointing to Lily. "And you've got your big project, remember? I could finish it at home," Jamie argued, his eyes pleading. "We could go hiking instead." Nora paused, her heart racing at the thought. The mountains felt like a siren song, calling her to freedom, adventure, and perhaps a chance to see Ethan again. But the reality of being a responsible mother grounded her. "Maybe this weekend," she promised, feeling a pang of guilt. "How about we plan a family hike on Saturday?" "That sounds awesome!" Jamie's enthusiasm was infectious, and Nora couldn't help but smile. As she dropped the kids off at school, Nora felt a familiar ache in her heart. The vibrant world of youth surrounded her, but she felt trapped in an adulthood filled with responsibilities and loss. She had buried herself in her children, in teaching, and in all that life demanded from her. But she couldn't shake the yearning for something more. Returning home, she settled into her routine, grading papers and planning lessons. But her thoughts often drifted back to Ethan. Their last conversation echoed in her mind, the way he'd looked at her with such intensity, as if he could peel back the layers and see the woman she was beneath the mother. Just as the afternoon sun began its descent, her phone buzzed, snapping her from her thoughts. A message flashed on the screen. "Ethan. Nora. I hope you're doing well. I was wondering if you wanted to grab coffee or lunch sometime this week. The mountains are calling my name again. Evo. Endoli. Endashi. Kenta. Iljimatur." Her heart raced, a mix of excitement and apprehension flooding through her. What would she say? She wanted to see him, yet the weight of her responsibilities loomed like a dark cloud. She stared at the message, fingers hovering over the screen, contemplating her response. After several moments of internal debate, she typed back, "Deed love to catch up. How about tomorrow?" And almost instantly her phone chimed again. "Perfect. Let's meet at the coffee cabin at noon." "Wah, Pani Jimin, and Orun. A Dachstensen?" Nora smiled despite herself, a flutter of anticipation dancing in her chest. The following day arrived with an air of excitement and nerves. Nora stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her hair, the reflection revealing a woman who had spent too long in the shadows. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple yet elegant top paired with her favorite jeans, a blend of ready for business and casual comfort. As she made her way to the coffee cabin, the familiar path to the cafe felt different. The trees lining the sidewalk seemed to sway in rhythm with her racing heart. When she stepped inside, the scent of roasted beans enveloped her, and her gaze immediately landed on Ethan at a corner table, a warm smile illuminating his face. "Hey there," he greeted, rising to greet her. The way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, made her stomach flutter. "Hi," she replied, her voice slightly breathless. They shared a moment that felt suspended in time. "I'm glad you could make it," Ethan said, his eyes sparkling with genuine warmth. "I've been looking forward to this." "Me too," Nora admitted, settling into the chair opposite him. I wasn't sure if I should say yes after everything. Because of your responsibilities? He asked, tilting his head. The understanding in his gaze made her heart ache, and she felt the walls she had built around herself begin to crack. Yes, she sighed, running a hand through her hair. It's hard to find time for myself, let alone entertain. Distractions. Distractions can be a good thing, Ethan said lightly, but his eyes were serious. Trust me, I'm not here to complicate your life. I just enjoy your company. Nora's heart raced at his words. I enjoy being with you too, but it feels different, complicated. Why does it have to be complicated? He asked, leaning in slightly. The warmth of his presence enveloped her, drawing her in despite her reservations. Because I have kids to think about, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't just leap into something new. Ethan studied her, and she could see the flicker of understanding in his eyes. Nora, you're not leaping into anything drastic. You're simply allowing yourself to enjoy a connection. That's okay. Is it? She asked, her heart pounding in her chest. What if it leads to something more? Something I can't handle? It's about taking small steps, he replied, his tone reassuring. Just meet me halfway. Let's explore this without the pressure. Nora felt the tension between them crackle like static electricity. What if I want to explore more? She whispered, her voice trembling with vulnerability. Then let's, he said, his gaze steady and inviting. But only when you're ready. The air between them thickened, charged with unexpressed feelings. Nora's breath hitched as she studied his face, the way his lips curved into a soft smile that made her heart race. Let's start with coffee then, she said softly, her heart pounding in her chest. One step at a time. Sounds perfect, Ethan agreed, his eyes dancing with mischief. I promise to keep the conversation light. For now. They shared laughter over coffee, their connection deepening with each exchanged glance. As the conversation flowed, Nora felt the weight of her worries begin to lift, if only temporarily. But just as a sense of ease enveloped them, the door swung open, and a familiar face entered. Her ex-husband, Mark Tarda. He paused, his expression shifting from surprise to an unreadable mask as he spotted Nora with Ethan. Nora, he said, his voice tense as he approached their table. Nora's heart raced, her stomach twisting into knots. Mark, she replied cautiously. What are you doing here? I came for coffee, he said, his gaze flicking between her and Ethan, confusion etched in his features. Nora felt Ethan's presence beside her, a steady anchor as the tension escalated. This is Ethan, she introduced, missing the warmth of their earlier moment. Nice to meet you, Ethan said, extending a hand, his demeanor calm despite the sudden shift in atmosphere. Mark shook Ethan's hand, and Nora could sense an underlying tension. You're a new acquaintance, Mark asked, his tone clipped. Just catching up, Nora replied, forcing a smile. Nothing more. Right. Mark's gaze lingered on her, his eyes narrowing slightly. Nora could feel Ethan tense beside her. It's nice to see you, Mark, he said coolly. But the undertone of possessiveness didn't escape her notice. Yeah, you too, Mark replied, his expression hardening. As they exchanged polite but strained pleasantries, Nora felt trapped in an uncomfortable limbo, caught between her past and the possibility of a future. The warmth she had felt with Ethan dimmed under the weight of Mark's presence, and she longed for the easy banter they had shared moments before. Maybe we should wrap this up, Ethan suggested after a moment, his voice calm though she sensed his disappointment. I wouldn't want to intrude on your conversation. Nora felt a pang of regret, but understood the unspoken tension. Right, she agreed, her heart heavy. As they finished their coffee, the air was thick with unspoken words, and Nora felt the familiar ache of guilt at the thought of moving forward while being tethered to her past. Once outside, Ethan turned to her, his expression a mixture of concern and understanding. I'm sorry about that, he said softly. stepping closer, his voice low. "I didn't mean to complicate things. It's not your fault." Part 4. The Crossroads of Heart and Memory. The air outside the coffee cabin was thick with tension as Nora stood beside Ethan, feeling the remnants of warmth from their earlier connection slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. The encounter with Mark had been an unwelcome reminder of the complexities of her life, a stark contrast to the burgeoning hope she felt with Ethan. "I should have warned you," Nora murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect him to show up." Ethan's expression softened, revealing a vulnerability beneath his composed exterior. "You don't have to explain anything to me," he replied, his voice steady. "Life is complicated. I get that." Nora looked up at him, her heart racing at the kindness in his gaze. "But it complicates things for you, too. I mean, you have no idea what kind of history comes with me." "Maybe not," he said, taking a step closer, the space between them shrinking. "But I do know that you deserve to have your own life, regardless of your past." The sincerity in his tone tugged at her heart. She felt drawn to him, yet the shadows of her life loomed large, creating a barrier that felt insurmountable. I worry," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "Worry that I'm not enough for you." "Enough." Ethan's brow furrowed. "What does that even mean?" "You're more than enough, Nora. I'm here because I want to be." She opened her mouth to argue, but the vulnerability in his expression made her pause. "I've been a mother for so long," she explained. "It's hard to step away from that role." "You can be both," Ethan urged gently, his eyes locked onto hers. "You can be a mother and still allow yourself to feel joy and connection." Nora bit her lip, the weight of his words pressing against her chest. "I've spent so long feeling guilty for wanting something different. It feels like I'm betraying my husband's memory." "Your husband wouldn't want you to live in the shadows forever," he said, his voice low and earnest. "He'd want you to find happiness, even if it's with someone new." The tears she had fought to contain threatened to spill. "It's just so hard," she whispered, her throat tightening. "I miss him every day. I can't imagine what that must be like," Ethan said softly, reaching out to brush a stray tear from her cheek, his fingers lingering a moment too long, igniting a warmth that spread through her entire body. His touch sent a shiver down her spine, and for a fleeting moment, she thought of pulling him closer, losing herself in the magnetic pull between them. But the reality came crashing back. She was a mother and a widow, and such thoughts were dangerous. I'm sorry," she said hastily, stepping back. "I didn't mean to get emotional. You must think I'm a mess." He shook his head, an affectionate smile playing at the corners of his lips. "You're human, Nora. Besides, it's okay to feel. It's okay to let someone in." Nora glanced away, her heart a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "I just don't want to hurt you," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan stepped closer again, his gaze steady. "Then let me be the one to decide if I'm hurt by this. Don't shut me out before we even get started." The intensity in his eyes captivated her, sending a rush of longing coursing through her veins. "It's just, can we really move forward with all of this?" she asked, uncertainty lacing her voice. "I don't know," he admitted, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his tone. "But I'd like to try. Together." Nora's heart raced as she considered his words. In that moment, she felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos of her thoughts. "Okay," she finally said, the words slipping past her lips like a breath released. "I'm willing to try." Ethan's smile widened, and he looked genuinely relieved. "Great. How about we take it one step at a time? Let's plan another hike. Just you and me, no pasts or complications." "Just the mountains, then," she replied, her heart fluttering with excitement at the prospect. "Exactly," he said, his grin infectious. "And who knows? Maybe this time we can avoid any surprise guests." Nora laughed, feeling the tension dissolve slightly. "I think that would be for the best." "All right, it's a plan," he said, a spark of mischief in his eyes. "And who knows, we might even get a little lost in the wilderness." Lost? Nora raised an eyebrow playfully, her heart warming at the thought of him beside her in the mountains. "What do you mean by lost?" "I mean lost in conversation. Lost in the beauty of nature," he said, stepping back to give her a teasing smile. "But if we get physically lost, I promise to be your knight in shining armor." "You better be," she shot back, her heart racing as she felt the comfortable banter return between them. As they walked back toward their cars, the warmth of the sun enveloped them, and Nora felt the shadows of her past begin to lift, if only just a little bit. "So, what's your favorite hiking spot?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation back to lighter territory. "Honestly, there's a hidden waterfall not too far from here," Ethan replied, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "It's a bit of a trek, but it's worth it. The view is breathtaking." "Is it a secret?" she asked, intrigued. "Only if you promise not to tell anyone," he said with a wink. "It's my little escape." "Deal." Nora's heart soared at the thought of exploring new paths with him. "I can't wait to see it." As they reached their cars, the playful connection felt palpable, and Nora lingered, her heart pounding in her chest. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. "What happens if this doesn't work out? If we get too close?" Ethan took a step closer, his expression turning serious. "Then we deal with it. Together. But right now, let's just focus on getting to know each other. No expectations." Nora felt a rush of warmth at his words, the sincerity washing over her like a gentle tide. "Okay," she agreed, her voice stronger now. "One step at a time." "Exactly," he said, his eyes twinkling. "And who knows, we might end up enjoying the journey more than the destination." As they exchanged numbers to finalize their hiking plans, Nora felt a sense of hope blossoming within her. She was venturing into uncharted territory, but this time, she was ready to embrace it. "See you soon, Nora," Ethan said, his voice low and inviting as he opened his car door. "See you soon," she replied, her heart racing as she watched him drive away, the tension lingering in the air like a promise. With a renewed sense of purpose, Nora took a deep breath, feeling the cool mountain air fill her lungs. It was time to let go of the past and embrace the possibility of a future, one step at a time. The mountains had witnessed her pain, her loss, and now they would bear witness to her journey of rediscovery, a chance at love, happiness, and finding herself anew amidst the beauty of it all. As she drove home, a smile crept onto her face, the shadows that had lingered in her heart beginning to lift. She was a mother, yes, but she was also a woman. One who was ready to reclaim her story, and perhaps write a new chapter with the rich stranger who had unknowingly sparked a flicker of hope within her soul.